Hey everyone, Lisa Gifford here, and welcome. And we are here for another Sew and Show subscription box, and this is our September 2025, and I have it right here. So let's open it up and let's take a look and see what we have going on this month. All right, here we go. You ready? I got a pattern. And I have some templates, so I'm looking at a pattern by Cut Loose Press. It looks like it is a really fun project that we're going to be making, and we're going to be doing a table runner, and it is called Aquila, and it's designed by Miss Deb Heatherly. So I got that right here, so we're going to pull this out. We have the pattern right here, front and back, and we have our templates in here. I've got a 6.5 inch square and 2 pieces. We have a rectangle that has an angle in it, and then we have, trying to remember what this one is called. I think it's called a trapezoid. So we have a trapezoid. So we got the 2 pieces right here that we're going to be needing to be making the project. And here is our fabric that we have with this one. Let me pull all of this out. So we have a 1/2 yard of a background fabric. We have 2/3 of a yard of a fabric one and an accent fabric, and then 2/3 of a yard for your other fabric. So these are all the pieces that you need, and you do have enough in here to be able to make your binding. So these are the pieces that we have, and this is a beautiful batik line. And this is Riley Blake, and it's the line is called Expressions. So we're going to have a lot of fun playing with this one. Now, some of the tools that you're going to need to be able to put this all together, of course, you might need some clips, you might need some pins, you're going to need your rotary cutter, maybe some trimming scissors. And I have found that using the seam press and the block presses work really good for this project. And of course, your rulers, your mat, rotary cutter, iron, you're going to need all of those fun things. So the first thing that you're going to do once you get your fabric out is you're going to get everything pressed. But before we go into that, I want to show you a sample of one that we're going to be making. And I'm going to show you the different colorways that you're going to be getting, because there's like 4 or 5 different colorways. They're all from the Expression lines. There's going to be a little bit of variation. But here's the one that I made with the fabrics. And this is, and again, it makes a table runner that is 19.5 by 43.5. And look at that, isn't that fun? So basically we're learning how to make what is called the Hunter Star. So this is one of them that I have made. I've got a couple more on the wall, and we'll walk over there and I'll show you those. But this was a lot of fun, and just play with the colors, and you can be able to do so many different things with it. But this is what we're going to be making. It's a single block, but you put 4 of them together to make the Hunter Star. And we're literally going to just be making this block right here. I got one right here. So this is a different colorway, but this is the block that we make. We make 4 of these and put them together to make a larger block. So I'm going to have fun showing you how to put all this together. Now here's some of the other colorways that you're going to be getting in your kit. So this one, I call this one more the green, the purple. We've got this colorway that you'll be seeing. Some of you might get this one here, more of the blue and the pinks. Here is another one with more of a cranberry and a teal and this main focal fabric here. Here is one in the greens and burgundies and the focal fabric here. So you'll be seeing this variety of the Riley Blake Expressions line in your box. So let's take a look. I want to show you some other colorways that I had done with this one, because it was so much fun to play with it and do some other things. And I grabbed a couple other colors with me, because I wanted to show you. I wanted to make one out of this. I thought this would be fun, grabbing the fun print and then pulling out 2 of the colors that's in it. Here's one I thought about for fall, making my main focus be this one, and then these 2 lighter ones be the accent. There's enough contrast, I think it would look really good. But let's walk over to the board, or to my design wall, and I'm going to show you 2 more that I had made. And it was just so much fun to do this project. Now this one here, I pulled out some Christmas fabric. So I had this main print right here that had the red, the creams, the whites, and the greens. And so I pulled out the red and the green, And instead of using the green for this other border, I found this really nice print that went with this line and changed it up just a little bit. So have fun playing with the fabrics and changing it up a little bit. Now here's one, the first one I had done that wasn't, well, I didn't change it too much, but I kept it all the same. So here's where I've got fold out this print here of this fall print, and I pulled out the oranges and the blues, and it made another look. So this one is one of those templates that you'll be able to use over and over and over to make a lot of different projects with it, for all the different seasons that you want to make your table runners with. But this one, we're going to have fun putting this one together. It goes together quickly, so literally you can have the table runner made in an afternoon, because you're literally making 12 of those single blocks, and then you make 3 blocks, and then you're just putting borders on it, so it goes together real quick. All right, so let's get started on what you need to do. The first thing I need for you to do before you do any cutting is to be sure to press your fabrics, press, get them all nice and flat. Get everything all pressed to do all of your cutting. And all the cutting instructions are in here, but we're going to do a quick couple little changes because we have our templates. That's going to make it so much easier to do everything. So I'm going to get my templates out because you're going to need these. You'll notice on the templates, they do say Aquila on them. And you got the one, the B, that's the trapezoid. So you'll be using this one. And the P and the V means it's got a pattern and the video that you're watching here. And then the Aquila, this one here, we call this one AAR because you got to have this one. When you're cutting this one, you're keeping your fabric folded because you're going to have your mirror images to be able to make your star legs. So that's what this one here is for. And then I'm going to show you how you'll be able to use the 6.5 at the very end. You'll need this one because we're kind of taking the instructions that's here, but we're changing it up just a little bit so that you'll be able to see how well the templates work for all of this. All right, so once you get your fabrics all out and all completely pressed, then you're going to do some cutting. So on this one here is the one that has the print. This is what I call, this is the background fabric. So once you get this one all pressed, you're going to do some cutting. You're going to do some 2-inch widths. Then you're not going to subcut them. In the instructions, it has you cutting 3 strips of fabric that are 2 inches with the fabric, and then it has you subcutting. Do not subcut. Once you get your strips cut, your 2-inch strips cut, you're going to leave them the full length. So do not subcut them because you're going to be using the templates here. Actually, we'll save fabric a little bit this way by using the templates instead of having to subcut them into smaller pieces. So that takes out that step. So you're going to cut all of those first. Just cut your strips. You're going to need 3 2-inch strips with the fabric. Do not subcut. And then also you're going to cut 2 more 2-width strips. So you're going to cut a total of 5 strips from the main focal fabric that are 2 inches wide. So go ahead and get your fabric pressed and get all of your strips cut. 2 of the strips are going to be used for, or 3 of the strips will be used, 3 strips will be used for the star points, and 2 strips will be used for your trapezoids. So once you get them cut, just go ahead and set them aside. And then you're also going to cut 1 strip of 5.5-inch with a fabric strip. So be sure to get that cut. And then you're going to subcut that one. So you do subcut that one into 5.5-inch squares, and then we do cut it again. So go ahead and get all of your fabrics cut for your background. For your red fabric, so you got to decide which one's going to be your red, which one's going to be your blue, as she has it here. So on this one right here, it was pretty easy, red and blue. So my red one, you're going to be cutting those into 3 2-inch strips. Those are also going to be for your star points. Do not subcut those. So you're going to have your 2-inch strips for this one. And then here's my other pieces for my trapezoid. So here's my strips for my background fabric and for the star legs. And then here is the strips for the red. And then you're also going to cut 3 1.5-inch strips, and I actually have them right here. These are my 3 1.5-inch strips. These are used for your inner border. So once you get that cut, then go ahead and set that aside. And then your final fabric, the blue fabric, you're going to cut that into, you're going to need a 5.5-inch strip. So go ahead and cut your 5.5-inch strips and subcut that into 5.5-inch squares. You need to have a total of 6 squares, and then you're going to cut them on the diagonal. So you'll have 12 of these triangles. You'll have 12 of these. So be sure to get all those cut from the blue, and here it is with the background. You cut your 6 5.5-inch squares, and then again you cut it on the diagonal so that you will have 12 of these, 12 of the triangles of the 5.5 inches of the background. So you only do that with the blue, and you do it with the background. And then you also after you cut your 5.5-inch square, then you're going to cut 2 with the fabric strips. That's right here. You're going to cut 2 with the fabric strips. Do not subcut them. Those are for your trapezoids. And let me see, then you're going to cut your borders. So you're going to cut 3 strips that are 3 inches. And it tells us to go ahead to subcut them into the 38 inches and 19.5 inches, but I always like to wait until I'm completely done after I put the top together and measure. That way I know I'm going to be precise, because some of us are, seam allowance, our 1/4 inch might be a little bit thinner or might be a little bit wider. So I want to be sure to get it right. So I always wait to the end before I put my borders on. After I measure on each end, and then I'll make the border for that one. All right, so once you have all of your fabric all cut and labeled, and just set it aside, and now we're going to get ready to start sewing, and then we're going to start cutting out our star legs, which is with the rectangles, and then which is going to be this one, and then we're going to be cutting out our trapezoids. All right, so using the background fabric, you're going to get the background fabric, one of your 2-inch strips, so I think it's going to be 2 of them, and you will use the rectangle. That's this one here. I call this the star leg, and you'll be using this to cut out all of your pieces. Now, you need to keep your fabric folded for this, because we got to have our mirror image. So to do this, you're literally just laying your template on here. I'm going to show you how easy it is. You're just going to lay your template on, and you're going to just do your cutting, and it goes together so quickly. So keeping all of my edges all lined up, instead of having to do the step of subcutting everything, I'm just placing my template on the strip, and now you can easily just do all of your cuts. Be sure to cut that little angle. If you see you might need to shave off a little sliver, go ahead and get those off. And you're going to cut out 12 of these from the fabrics that you have. And I believe it is 3 strips is what you're going to need to be able to get 12 of these cut out, which will give you a total of 24. Because once you open it up, you have your left and right. So that's very important, to keep your fabric folded so you can have your left and your rights of all of those for your star legs. Now, next you're also going to cut out your trapezoids from the other 2 pieces for the other part of what you're going to need for this one. So the trapezoids, so when you're cutting out 2, by keeping your fabric folded, you're going to get 2. So you're only going to be cutting 6 times, but it will give you the 12 that you need. So the same thing, you're just going to lay your template onto your strip like this, and then you're just going to do all of your cutting. And you'll be able to save on your fabric, because you'll be able to cut back and forth. You're just by turning your template. So I'm going to go ahead and get that cut. Be sure to cut your little angle pieces. So here's 2. You'll only be doing 6 cuts to get to 12. And then you're just going to rotate your template, reposition it, so you're not having to cut out all that subcutting, and then go ahead and get the next set. And I think you can almost get all of them cut from one strip. And you're going to continue doing that till you have a total of 12 of the trapezoids. All right, so I got those. Here's all of my trapezoids right here. So that's what you do with the background fabric. You're also going to grab your red fabric, And that would be what I have right here. And you're going to, with the red fabric, you're going to be cutting out your star legs with this one. So we only do the star legs with the red fabric, and we only do the inner border with this one. So grabbing the rectangle that has the angle on the end, I'm keeping my fabric folded for this. Got to have 12 cuts for a total of 24 legs. So I'm just laying it on my template, laying on the fabric, keeping it folded, and just getting it all trimmed away. Continue doing those till you have all 12 cuts, which will be a total of 24. Once you have the first cut, then the same thing, you just rotate it and get your next cut. And you just keep cutting until you completely go to the very end. Keeping them together. And then these are your star legs with the red. Now going to the blue, you're going to grab your 2-inch strip and it is used not for the star legs at all. It is only for the trapezoid. So you've got to have 12 of these. So here's my full strip. So I'm just going to keep it folded so I can get 2 at a time. And start doing your cut the same. Continue cutting until you have a total of 12. So every time you do a cut with the fabric still folded, gets you 2. And there, I got 4 right there. Now you're also going to be cutting trapezoids, like you already showed you, from your main background fabric. So you have trapezoids with 2 of the fabrics, your blue and your main fabric. And then you have star legs made with the red and the background fabric. So these are the components that you need for the very first start, for the very first step to making our hunter star, is these pieces right here. All right, so let me set some of this aside. Now your 5-inch squares is another step that you need. So you're going to take your 5-inch squares and then you're going to cut them on the angle. So once you get them cut, you will have a total of, you're cutting 6, so you'll have a total of 12. So once you have all your 5.5-inch squares cut, go ahead and cut them on the angle. And stack those up. You need them in the background fabric and you need them in your blue fabric. All right, so these are all the components that I need for the next step of doing our hunter star. Okay, so the whole thing that we're working towards is making this block right here. So we're going to be creating this one right here. This is the block. When we put 4 of them together, it creates this. So this is what we're looking for. When we make 4, we sew them together like a 4 patch, and we do it 3 times, and that's all that you need. So you got to make 12 total of these to make 3 of these. So the first thing that we have to do is that we've got to start sewing our star legs together to our trapezoid. So for this project, you're going to take the blues, the blue trapezoids, and you're going to use the background for the star legs. That's what gets sewed onto these. And then the background trapezoids get your red for your star legs. So we're just going to sew these onto each side onto the trapezoid. And then we're going to press those, and then we'll go to the next step of adding our pieces here to create this one. When we get to this, then we're going to trim it down to get to this. So it goes together so quick. So let's just go to the sew machine and let's get one of these sewed up. So I'm just going to do one with the red in the background, and then one with the blue in the background. And we'll get these all sewed up. And this is one of those projects that would be really easy to do. You could chain piece these really quickly. All right, so let's go to sew machine. Let's get this started. All right, so I keep my pairs together. So I know that on opposite sides is the right side. And then I'm going to just start by sewing this together. So I take the first one and I set it aside, because the second one is what's going to be going here onto right side down. And you're going to take this angle on the very tip of the rectangle, and it's going to lay right here onto the one side, and it will line up perfectly. And you're going to stitch right here, going across right here, 1/4 of an inch. And you're going to place the other one right side down, and it's going to go on this side. But we do one side first, and then we go and do the other side. So it's so easy to chain piece. So I have in my machine, I put in a kind of a gray thread, kind of is very neutral for this one. And I have it set at a 1/4 inch because it's a perfect 1/4 inch to sew this one. So I like to start at the center, at the narrow part of the trapezoid, and then going out to the outside. I found that was just so much easier, and just having it I have my little starter, and then I won't use the starter again when we're doing the chain piecing. So we're just going to set this under here, and we're going to just do a 1/4 of an inch all the way to the end. I'm going to go ahead and grab my blue with the background, and we're going to take the top one off because the top one was right side up, and that's going to go on the other opposite side. Just going to line up that little edge right here on the top, matching up that little angle, pivot it just a little bit, setting it at the 1/4 inch, however you have your machine set up for, and just stitch it all the way down till it comes off a 1/4 inch off the other end. And you just continue doing all those till they're all chain pieced together. All right, so we're going to go ahead and clip them apart. I'm not even going to press yet. Now we're just going to go ahead and get the other side sewed on. So don't take the time to press. You'll be pressing them in a minute because you got to press them all in the one direction. So we're just going to go ahead and grab it, flip it over. So now we're going to grab our red one. Now I take the red one and I bring the star leg down, and then I'm going to flip this to where the right side is going to be on top of this one. So again, I like starting at the top, at the narrow part, and going down. I just found it was easier, but you might have to play with it to see which is more comfortable for you. Get my little leader in here. And just go ahead and just start sewing. You can be right there at that 1/4 inch. Same thing, grabbing this one, flipping it over so it's right sides together. Just give me a couple anchoring stitches to hold it in place, lining up everything, and go ahead and sew it. So once you have all of your star legs all sewn up, Now we have to press before we can go to the next step. So let's go to the pressing. The instructions have us pressing all of our seams in the same direction, and there's a reason for that, because when we go to one of our steps, we're going to be nesting those seams up. So it'll be real easy to do by having the seams all going in the same direction, because when you have it flipped to the opposite side and you place them together, they will nest well. So what I like to do first is I'm going to go ahead and set my seam. So I've got my trapezoid side up, and I'm just setting my seam. Now I want to turn this so that the seams are up and the narrow part of the trapezoid is facing towards me. And we're going to press all of our seams going to the left. So again, I have it where it's the narrow part of the trapezoid is pointing towards me, and I'm pressing all of my seams to the left. So I like to set my seam. I'm kind of holding the one side, and I'm just letting the iron just turn those seams all going into the same direction. Now I flip it over and I hit it from the top side. And it should look like this. It should be nice and straight going all the way across. Once I have it pressed, I like grabbing my seam press and popping it on there while I get to the next one and get it pressed. So same thing, it's pointing towards me, the seams are up, and I'm just going to let the iron push those seams towards the left. Flip it over, hit it from the top side. And then we place it underneath our seam press and just let it cool for just a second. And you're going to do that to all pieces. So you'll have 12 of these and you'll have 12 of these. All right, so that's the first step. So now we're going to add the second part to it. So let's go back over to the cutting station. I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing. So you're going to be matching up the blue 5.5 inch cut on the diagonal, and it's going to be going with the blue that is on this strip right here. So those go together, and the background goes with the one that has the background trapezoid with the red star legs. So you're going to take one, we're going to take those and we're going to stitch those on here, but there's a trick to this. So I'm going to show you how easy this is to do. So you're going to take your piece and you're going to take your piece with the trapezoid, right side up, and you're going to fold it in half. And on that narrow side, where it's narrow, I want you to put a little crease. You know, just kind of finger press a little crease. Just like that. So now you see this little crease right here. Now you're going to take the the rectangle, or the triangle, and looking at the right side down, placing it right side down, now you're going to fold it up on that long edge, matching up the points, and you're going to put a little crease right here. So you're folding it wrong sides together. And now these two creases are going to nest right there into that spot. So that's where you just found your centers. Now you can clip that or pin that. And you're going to do that to all of those. And then you're going to do the same thing with all of the ones with the background and the red. So I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to finger press that center into the narrow side of the trapezoid. And you see it right here. Right side down. I'm going to fold it up, matching my point, put a little crease at the center there on the long edge. And now these two creases will nest together right here. And you can pin or clip that. Now we're going to stitch this down, starting here at the edge all the way down. You do not have to sew all the way off. I just like to stitch from here to here and then cut my threads and then go to the next one. So I tried chain piecing this one and it didn't work very well because you're just doing these long stitches, and I just found it was just easier if I just go ahead and just sew each one individually. It was just a little bit easier that way. So let's go ahead and get these all sewed. So I have it still in my center. We're going to start up here on this one edge and we're going to stitch all the way down 1/4 of an inch. And you're going to do that to all of them. So it'll be a total of 12 that you'll be doing. Got that done. So you'll have 12 of these with the blue and 12 of these with the background. Now we're going to press again. So let's go back to the ironing station. Now all of these get pressed. Now we're pressing our seams open. I still like to do my setting seam first. I set that seam. And then we're going to press all of these seams open. So however you find is your easiest way to get all of your seams pressed open. I just like to get my little start here, and then I'm going to let the iron do the rest. Now it's going to kind of fold over on the end, but don't worry about that. That's all going to be trimmed off in the end. We're just going to go ahead and press that seam open on all of our pieces. I flip it over and I go ahead and do the other side. And then again, I set this underneath the seam press. Set the seam, lay it open, get my tool in here to get it started. And we'll press that seam open. Flip it over, flatten it out a little bit. Be very careful here. There's some bias going on, and I always like to try to pay attention to the direction of the grain of the fabric. But I've got different movements going on here. So more pressing, don't push. And then once that's nice and flat, go ahead and also place that underneath the block press. So next thing we're going to do is now we got to find, we're going to be sewing the two of the different pieces together. So this is why it was so important to press all of your seams in the same direction at the very beginning. Because when we go to put these two pieces together, we're literally nesting these seams right here. We're going to be nesting the part of the trapezoid seams are going to be nesting together, and you'll actually will see or feel where it nests in. So I don't really pay attention to what's going on the edge. So let me go over here to the overhead so you can see what I'm talking about. So we had all of these seams pressed in the same direction. But when we go to put them together, now we're going to have them going in opposite directions so that you'll be easily be able to nest this seam. So this one's going this way, and if I flip this one over, the red one is going in the opposite direction. So these two seams right here is what we're looking to nest. We're going to nest those right there, and if you want to pin or clip it, you can, and then it will automatically nest the other seam. So those are what you're looking to do. You're going to nest those two seams, and you're going to start at the top, and you're going to just stitch all the way to the very end, so you can kind of chain piece all of these together. So let's go ahead and get this sewed up. Just nesting that seam. and you'll feel it nest, and you're just going to do your 1/4 of an inch all the way across. And you'll continue doing all those till you have all 12 of them done. Once you have them sewed together, we get to press again. So let's go back to the pressing station, and we're pressing this seam open. So I just got it laid out in front of me, and I'm just going to find my little tool to open up that seam. Now I've got lots of seams going on here, so we're going to gently just press. All of these seams open. And then I like to flip it over and flatten it all out. If you want, you could hit it with a little bit of water, add a little steam to it, kind of set it just a little bit more. Because our next step is where we're going to be now trimming it down to our 6.5 inches. And this is where another step that we're changing up a little bit by using our template, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to be able to use our template. So now I'm going to go ahead and set my block press under here, and this is my 7-inch block press. I just have it setting on here, and it's just going to get all those seams all nice and set and flat. And then we're going to move on to where now we're going to trim it down. So I'm going to show you the cute little trick that we're going to use our 6.5 inch square for this part. So now I'm going to show you how easy it is to use the Martelli 6.5 inch square to get this squared up to our 6.5 inches on this piece right here. All right, so looking at it here, you'll see I've got this long seam that goes all the way across. That's going to be used for these two of the opposite edges. But how do we find it here? So here's what I found that works really well to put this together and getting it squared up. So I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to fold it in half. So we're going to do another little finger press. I'm going to fold it up to where my edges on the sides are lining up. So I'm rolling it up, and then I'm just going to put, once I get it there, I'm going to finger press it right here to create that crease here, and then I'm going to do it on the other side where it's at the halfway point. Put a finger press right here. So we got our center guide going this way. Now we're going to have it going side to side. So once I have those little finger presses, those are my guides right here. So that's going to be for the other two corners of our square. So I take my square and I'm just going to lay it onto here, and I'm going to have one point at one seam and one point at the other seam, and then I'm going to adjust it and move it down to where I get the other 2 points, the opposite points that are in the crease that we had just made, keeping 2 points on the seam top and bottom and adjusting it as I need to up and down to get it into the seams that we had just finger pressed. So once I get it to where I'm happy with it, right here, now we can go ahead and just trim all the way around. And now we have our 6.5 inch finished block. Here's another one I need to do. Same thing, I've got my seam here. So we're just going to fold it up. We're going to line up the edges of each side. On this one, it's the blue and the background, lining up those edges. Seeing that I've got it centered here. Put my finger press here and here. Open it back up. So there's my guide going across, and I've got my guide already up and down, vertical and horizontal. So I start by putting my seams, my points on the seam, and adjusting it up or down till I get the points into my little creases that we just made. And right there's right where I need for it to be. So now we can go ahead and trim this one up. How easy is that to quickly get your pieces all to your 6.5 inches? Once you have that done on all 12, now it's just a matter of sewing them all together to make our big block. So let's get some of this out of the way and we'll start. So we're done with our templates now. So now we're just going to make a giant 4-patch. Now here's you need to pay attention to the direction of where where it's going to be. I mean, particularly for this one here, you don't want to make one block and then make the other block different. So you want them all to be the same, and it's easy to get it turned around. Like if I had started like this one here, so I want them to be the opposites, like this. But it's easy if I was to put this one the other way, it's just a matter of which direction I'm turning it. It's going to have it spinning in the opposite direction, and I want them to be all the same. So you want to get all 4 of them, all 12 of them done, so that when you go to lay them out, that they're all the same in the same orientation. Because if you look here at the one that I've previously done, I have the red on this one more towards the top center instead of off to the side. So I want to be sure to have this turned in the right direction. And you want it to be red, then background, red, then background, red, background, red. So that's what I'm looking for it to look like, just like this. And we want it to be the same as the other blocks that I had already previously done. So it's easy to get it turned around. So be sure to get them all done and laid out so that you know how to put them all together. So now that I have this part done, now we're just going to sew these 2 together, sew these 2 together, and then we're going to sew all of these together. And if you'll notice, all of them, once I get a section done, we're pressing open the seams, and then we're going to press open the seams for our final stitching all the way across. So we treat this one like a 4-patch. So we're just going to place it right sides together, and we're going to stitch here, and we're going to stitch here, and then we'll sew these 2 together. All right, so let's get this one done. So I'm just lining it up and stitching across. So you're just looking to see if your seams are going to be lining right at matching up at each point. You've got a section here, and then of course you got your center. Whoops, I got it turned around. Yeah, they're right this way. Get my second one done. Couple anchoring stitches, lining up my edges. So you're going to do all that to all 12 of them. Then you got to press open your seams. So let's do what I always like to do. I always like to set the seam first, and then I go to press my seam open. My little tool to start it open for me. Flip it over. Get another press. I'm going to lay my seam press over that seam right there. We're going to set the seam. Get my tool in there to start it. And then we're going to take the two pieces and we're going to put them together. Matching up this seam, the center seam, and this seam, and then off to the ends. So we're almost there. So now we're just going to put these two right sides together and we're going to stitch across here and then open up that seam. So I'm going to get my everything lined up and do a couple anchoring stitches. I'm looking at this first one, coming across on it. Then we got our center seam. I'm seeing where that little point is right there. I don't want to cut off my point, so I'm just going to sew right to the edge of it. Got one more seam to make sure everything's lining up. Right here. You kind of will feel it. And then lining up my edges and the other side. You'll be doing that 12 times. Now we got one more seam to press open. So I'm going to set my seam. And we're going to get the seam pressed open. There's a lot of bulk going on here in the center. You might want to hit some steam on this part. I'm going to do that right here on the top side. And here's where I can pull out my larger block press and place it on there. So you do that 12 times. No, 3. You'll be doing it 3 times because you're doing 3 blocks. All right, so this block is done. It goes together so quick. I promise you, you can make this whole thing in an afternoon. So here is my third block of the 3, already done. So now you just sew these 3 together. And I'm just kind of lining them up here. See how they're looking. Now before we go any further, let me tell you the size of this block is 12.5 by 12.5. So that's what you're looking for. All of them to be about 12.5 by 12.5. Now you're going to put the 3 together, just like this. And then once we do that, we're to the part where we're going to be doing our borders. So let's go ahead and get these all sewed together. And you press those seams also open. I'm going to start putting my first little stitch in, just kind of anchoring it. Then lining up my seams as we go. Coming to my center. And my other two pieces here. And we're going to get our last one on. You kind of feel those seams under your fingers as you're going. Matching up that center one good. And then coming down to the last one. Got your 3 blocks all put together. Now let's press those seams open, and then we're going to measure to see what is our border going to be. Let's set that seam first. And we'll set this seam. So we're going to press all of these seams open. Now you cut 3 strips of the red that were 1.5 inches by width of fabric. So you're going to need 1 for each side, long side, and then you're going to need the third one is going to be for the short sides. All right, so we've got that side done. We're going to go ahead and give it a press on the top. You can see how well everything's just lined up. So this is where I like to do the measure first before I trim off my piece. So I'm going to grab a tape and we're going to measure the width of this one. Now it says I think 36.5. So let's see what we have here. I have 36.5, so that's from the seam. I'm also going to measure from each edge, 36.5 and 36.5. So comfortably I can go ahead and trim 2 of those strips to 36.5, and then we can get them on the top and bottom. So let's grab our 2 strips for our inner border. And they need to be 36.5 inches. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and take off the selvages on the end, and then we'll slide it over 1/2 inch and then go all the way to our 36. So I'm just going to slide this over 1/2 inch. Keeping it on one of my lines, 1/2 inch over. And then we're going to cut it at the 36 on the opposite end of my mat. Check twice, cut once, right? All right, so here are my 2 pieces that are 36.5 inches. So you're going to put those on the top and the bottom. We'll just go over here and I'll show you. You're going to put them on the top and the bottom, and then once you get that done, then you're going to measure here and here. You're going to get your measurements first before you cut your piece for the end pieces. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 14.5 inches. Let me take a look. It is for the inner border, it is 14.5 inches. So I don't think I need to do all that. I think y'all know that part of putting on your border. So get these cut, put them on to your top and the bottom of your piece. Once you get that done, then you're going to measure, press it, measure, and then you'll know what size to do your outer pieces. And then you'll repeat that same process when you do the outer border, which is the 3-inch border, which is the blue. So once you get all of that done, then you're going to have your piece all done, and it should look really close to this one right here. And this is the goal, to get to right here. So once you have all that completed done, then go ahead, put your backing on it, binding on it, quilt it as you want, and then just stitch on your binding and you are done. So I really hope you enjoyed this one. Again, this was Aquila. This is a pattern by Cut Loose Press. And this was again designed by Miss Deb Heatherly. So we put a little bit of a Martelli twist on it. So I hope you enjoy doing this one. And I can't wait to see the ones that you've done. All right, thank you so much for joining me for our September 2025 Sewing Show subscription box. I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye, everybody.